and we've seen that too. Like, I don't know if you've been to any of these where they do those like live concerts, like
Yeah.
they where the symphony orchestra plays the soundtrack of the movie
Mhm.
while the movie's playing on a screen.
Yeah.
I've gone to a few, like the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra here will do that. They charge $120 a ticket to go see a
Yeah,
movie that you've seen already, whether
exactly.
it's like Star Wars or something like that. $120 to go see it, but to see it in a different type of venue with a live orchestra playing the music is a special experience.
Yeah. The secret there is to understand where the constraints are. Can you constrain the amount of time that it's available for? Can you constrain the number of seats? What else can you constrain? And then you start thinking about, oh, I could sell one sponsor. Well, if I have 5 people who want to sponsor in Dallas, I can charge 25 or even 50 grand to sponsor that thing, because at some point you'll reach the level of, supply and demand equilibrium. But
Yeah.
don't worry about that. Like, just keep raising the price until you reach
T
that
and
point.
till you reach
So
that
like,
point.
and you know what? The post I'm going to make on that day, the Monday of that weekend, is like, here's the box office top 10, and the number 10 was $1.2 million, and guess what? We were number 4 because we did, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good thing. Like you said, like we
Yeah.
actually beat it, but they won't count. But the system won't acknowledge us,
Hey, who
or
cares? I
yeah, who
mean,
cares?
Just as we're taking up so much of your time, just as
I love
we
it. It's all
begin
good.
to
I'm here
okay.
for it.
Well, I'm just also curious about, your relationship then to your distributor versus, what a lot of people are looking at in terms of self-distribution and active distribution. How are you sort of navigating those waters as far as working with a distributor or doing a, sort of a hybrid model and handling certain things yourself?
Going forward, the distributor works for us. Like,
Yeah.
let's put it that way, as simply as I can. It's that they have to play by our playbook. Like, here's the play. We're not going to oversupply the marketplace. If there's 1,300 theaters that want our thing, well, guess what? They're not paying us any money to put the movie in theaters. They're not our actual audience. That was a mistake that we made, is thinking that, oh, demand from theaters equals demand from audience. Those are two different things. And you might have 400 theaters that want to play your movie because the only thing that's out is R-rated schlock. And they're going, wow, this is a PG movie about, faith and uplifting, and it's a good story. And, blah, there were reasons why all these theaters wanted our movie playing in one of their screens, and yet the audience didn't show up. Those are two different things. So what you need is audience demand, not necessarily theatrical demand. And that was a big miss on our part, with that we learned. Like, that was a test and we learned information. And now that we have that information, we'll never oversupply the marketplace again. I will not allow a distributor that I'm working with to do that. And I would even say, like, at some point I can see us working with a level of distributor like a Lionsgate or a Sony or a whatever, something like that, like a mid-tier, mid-level distributor. If 3 of them want to distribute the films that I'm making, well, guess what? I get to dictate the terms. And part of the terms are, we are only going to supply the marketplace with as much demand as we can prove. So if we have 1 million people on an email list, or they have 10 million on their email list with Lionsgate or whatever, how do we gauge the current demand? Well, you could do a wait list, you could do a pre-order, you could do whatever. But you say, look, we want to know the top 100 cities to release this movie on. So go here, click a link, put in your email address so we have it, and tell us your zip code. Okay, well, now you can scatter plot that on a map and know exactly where your top 100 markets are. Great. That's where we're releasing our movie. And then if we sold out on every single screen and we had a $15,000 or $20,000 per screen average for the weekend, well, sure, let's expand to 500 or 400 or whatever. And guess what? It's not going to be hard, because every single theater wants to have a movie that's doing 15 grand in a weekend,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because their bottom 4 movies are doing $84 in a weekend.
yeah.
So, like, if we can invert that and say, look, we are the ones in charge of the balance between supply and demand, let's never oversupply the market. And if we don't know what that threshold is, then let's figure it out. It's not that hard with digital technology these days to put a link up and say, click here if you're interested in our movie. And then we know, oh yeah, there's interest, right? You can do
Mhm.
this as a writer right now, right? So when I was working on this book, I went to my audience. I said, here's what I'm thinking for my next book. Can you let me know if this is something that's interesting? And I got a lot of people hitting reply and clicking on a link and going, okay, out of my audience of 2,500 people, there's 300 that are interested. That's a pretty high percentage. I should write the book, right? You can do it with the tools that are already available for free right now. You can gauge interest before you invest all the time and money in producing the thing.
And you
Yeah.
also made a podcast on that too, though. Like, it was not on your current podcast, but it was on a different podcast where you kind of went through like a week by week. You discussed like the concepts of each chapter kind of week by week. So you were building demand at the same time. and or seeing if the
Mm.
demand was there, right? Like I remember listening to some of those. I can't remember when you did that. It was like a couple of years ago, right? Like that
Yeah,
you
I
had
did the
started doing
same
that.
thing for my first book, which is called Craftsman Creative, which was a business that I was running up until last year. I've kind of shuttered it just so I can focus 100% on the film fund. But essentially, in order to build the demand, because I had an email list at the time, this was August of 2021. My email list was like 450 people. And it was scattershot. Like it was, oh, here's people that from an event that I ran, here's family and friends, here's people from some daily blog that I tested 2 years prior and then let that go dormant. Like it was not a focused audience of people. And so, how am I going to build an audience for this thing? Because I need to have an audience to release to. And so the answer was, well, let me build it as I write it. And so, as I was writing each chapter, I put it online and I put it as a newsletter. And in the course of writing the book, grew my list from like 400 something people to 2,000, and then was able to sell copies of the book. And honestly, this we don't need to get into it, but like it's a nice little aside for people who are thinking about writing in a different way. The point of writing the book was not to sell books and make money selling books. Yeah, I'm making like $100 a week selling books right now, which is great. I love it. You know, it's my gas money or whatever. But like
Yeah.
the point of the book is to when investor comes to me and he says, "Do you have a plan for how to do this?" I go, "Do I have a plan? I wrote the freaking book, man. Like this is the plan. This is what we're going to follow when it comes to producing indie films." Now, Blockbuster is not a book about how to produce indie films step by step by step, but it's a broader principles of how to do creative work at this
Yeah.
level.
It
So,
also it also
yeah,
demonstrates your business mindset because we can all be dreamy film people. It demonstrates that okay, I understand what you're looking for as an investor because I wrote a book about how to make a successful business.
yeah,
I understand what you're looking for and what you're investing in. This film project and film is a very like it's a tough market to be investing in, but just so you know, I'm taking these principles and applying it over
yeah.
here.
That's why I wrote it. And guess
Yeah.
what? Instead of sending them a DM on LinkedIn, I get one of these and send it in the mail. And I go, hey, here's a handwritten letter of why I think you and I should talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're going,
And
oh,
that
this person spent $20 to just talk to me. That's interesting. We should
yeah.
probably say yes to that.
But if you sent that to someone who potentially could be investing 100,000 or $1,000,000 in you, I mean, that's a very good ROI,
That's part of
right?
what being truly independent is figuring out, thinking like a producer and figuring out where's the leverage. And if you can find leverage where you can get outsized results on, independent resources, that's the key takeaway from the book is that's how to be profitable. So everything we talked about today, these principles that I wrote about in the book, but like that's a big idea to take away from this conversation is like, oh, where's the leverage? And if you're quote unquote just a writer, well, where's the leverage that you have? Well, it's probably in building an audience and creating demand for the writing that you're doing. If you're a producer, same thing. If you're an executive producer, same thing. If you're a distributor, same thing. Like whatever it is you do, those principles apply.
That one of the things that I remember reading in your blog, and I know I've heard you talk about this, is how much you focus on the marketing aspect of each film and how much money you're putting money behind it, but also, I guess, almost spending more time on the marketing and and that aspect of the film release than you are on the production of the film itself.
Yeah. Honestly, like if you asked me this 5 years ago, the order would be different. But now, with the experience I've had over these four films, production is the easy part. Like that's the part we grew up doing and we have experience doing and we've been doing for years and years and years. Production's easy. Post production's easy. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
I would say let's see. Right now I would probably say that distribution is the next easiest. So getting distribution, you can self-distribute. So you can distribute. I mean, I self-distribute my book. Distribution was like
Yeah.
click a link and open a store and now you have distribution. So the next hardest thing is financing, like getting the money, getting the people to buy in before the thing exists and investing in it in hopes that it'll be good and return a profit. The hardest thing is marketing. The hardest thing is getting an audience that is larger than the actual sales that you need in order to be profitable. So again, I read a lot about like the actual math of this stuff, but let's do it real quick because if you need to make $100,000 as a writer this year in order to be profitable as a solo writer, okay, you're going to make six figures, $100,000 this year. How many people need to pay you how many dollars in order for you to get that? And if it's three people giving you $35,000 each, okay, well now you need to get four people who want to pay you at least $35,000 to be oversubscribed. That's the only thing you should focus on this year is getting those four people to have the kind of tension where they want to give you $35,000 because the thing that you're going to give them in return is worth more than that. Same thing applies to everything, whether you're an actor, writer, producer, whatever. That's the only thing I'm focusing on is getting oversubscribed with my fund. If you're a writer, I would say the only thing to do this year, marketing wise, is to get oversubscribed for your writing. If you're a producer director, is to get oversubscribed for the people that you need right now to get to the next milestone.